Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the second dev server for update Ixwa Strike, and we're having a look at the Leopard 2PL. This is going to be a new squadron vehicle which is added to the game for update Ixwa Strike, and it's going to be for the Germans. Obviously, having German descent, this Leopard 2PL is based off of the 2A4, which we already have in the game at BR 10.0. This thing, being a squadron vehicle, it is going to have a squadron RP cost of 520,000 RP, so it's going to be quite high when it comes to it. I mean, what do you expect? It's a rank 7 battle rating 10.7 vehicle, you know, it's going to be pretty high on the research costs. So this vehicle is armed with the 120mm Rheinmetall 120 L44, and right now in game I don't actually think it has the correct shells, at least on the dev server. It is 2-plane stabilized, and if you've ever used the L44, you'll know how strong it is as a gun in general. It is one of those which can punch through pretty much anything it wants when it is given the correct ammunition. Obviously has the first stage ammo storage of 15 rounds at the back here in a blowout panel, so therefore you can survive a direct hit if it is from the side, you know, and just blows this up instead of hitting your crew. Gives you an extra little bit of survivability. The machine itself has a crew of 4, 1 driver, then also the gunner here, commander, and also a loader. Very much set up exactly like all of the other Leopards that we have in the game, and does have some pretty nice armor on top of it. The upper glacis and lower glacis, this is the exact same hull as the Leopard 2A4, so it has 35, 5, 20, 45 on the upper, and then 40 to 80, 45 on the lower. This upper glacis is not very strong compared to a lot of the rounds that were added at 10.7 recently. They could just chew straight through it, meaning that your armor, at least on your hull, is not going to be that useful. The turret armor though, I don't think it's fully modeled yet, but if it is, then it is okay, I suppose. It's very similar to the other vehicles that we have in the game when it comes to the 10.0 standard, with 35, 585, 45 on the loader side. Then on the gunner side you have 35, 440, 80, and then behind the optic you have an extra 35, 520, 45 for the gunner. You also have some side panels which are very beefy at 35, 220 and 45, and then the overall armor on the outside. This extra armor package right now is not really giving too much to be that useful. A few 20mm panels here and there, a little bit on the gun as well at 240mm, and also a little bit here, but you can see that there are still flat points around the breech and also around both sides, meaning that you can get to that meaty armor pretty easy if the turret is exposed. You should still be able to just go through the breach even with the extra armor with a lot of the 10.7 rounds, and since this thing right now is 10.7, wouldn't be surprised if it sees a lot of them. It is powered by the 1500 horsepower MTU MB838 CA-M500. This is a very powerful engine and is able to get this thing to and fro all over the place, just like many of the Leopards before it. At the same time, it does have quite a large just space here, so make sure if you are shooting from the side to shoot around this area to be able to hit the crew, or if they have some ammo in the front, make sure to shoot the driver and then focus on other areas too. The Leopard 2PL joins a bunch of other Leopards which are sat in the game right now at 10.7, just to add that insult to injury of how powerful the 2A6 has been recently. Now we're getting another vehicle on top of it to be as competitive. One of the things to mention though is I don't think the modifications are correct. On the dev blog it did talk about the Leopard 2PL getting the DM33 round and also the DM11 round. The DM33 is the same APF SDS that the 2A5 uses as its top round, and also the DM11 is a new HE round which is being added to the vehicle. Unfortunately, the Leopard 2PL only has the ammunition from the Leopard 2A4 right now, and it also shares its thermals as well, with only having Gen 1 gunner and no commander thermals. My guess is both of these are going to be upgraded by the time this thing is released because of the fact of how they talked about it in the dev blog. It would be very odd if they went back on what they've put in a dev blog. It does also have some smokes, has 16 of them. One of the great things about these Leopard tanks is the survivability that they have, and one of those parts, or one of the parts of that survivability, is the smokes. The fact that you can get 4 rounds off, and even 5 if you time it correctly after being shot. So 5 rounds of smoke or 4 rounds of smoke give you nearly twice the amount of smoke barrages compared to other MBTs of the same level, and that's always going to be positive compared to what you see from other machines. So yeah, I don't think this thing is fully combat effective right now. I don't think it has all of the bells and whistles that it should have, but you can still see why this thing could be a very powerful platform and will be in the game. You also have a bunch of different camouflage for it, a nice tricolor camouflage of the green, black, and also light brown. You have the 3-tone carc, the classic, the winter camouflage, and also this digital camouflage, which we're running around with right now, which looks really, really nice. It also does have a stock Heat FS round, which unfortunately has become standard for a lot of these top-ranking vehicles. I would rather that wasn't the case. It would be much better if they got a stock APFS DS round, but you know how it is with the changes that were made last year. So the Leopard 2PL comes in as the highest BR squadron vehicle in the game. You know, we had recently the A4E, which was added, which of course was a very high ranking one, but not as high as this machine here. This will join the top echelons of the game and mean that new players will be able to get into top tier pretty quickly if they want to. You know, obviously we have certain stuff such as premiums that get you pretty far up there, but nothing close to the PL, which will mean that you'll get into top tier matchmaking even if you've only researched 520,000 RP. And also, since this is a squadron vehicle, you can either research it through squadron RP or you can just GE it, and it just costs over 7,000 GE to be able to research. So technically, a player who is new to the game could easily get this vehicle if they just want to empty their pockets. It's a problem. I personally think that is getting worse and worse, and this machine kind of like exacerbates it, where it's where you have a bunch of different vehicles which are slowly but surely going up in BR, especially when they're added, and then you know you get to a point where people can just buy their way straight into top tier, and then they're going to get mangled by people who have been playing it for an incredibly long time, and then it's just not going to be a fun situation for them because of that fact. And unfortunately, with stuff like the terms being added as a premium, stuff like this Leopard 2PL for a squadron vehicle, it's just going to constantly just keep getting worse for the BR brackets unless they decide to extend it. Now you can see here, it's just an incredibly easy vehicle to play. I recently spaded the Leopard 2A4 and the Leopard 2A5, and found the experiences in the 2A5 and 2A6 to be some of the simplest in the game. You have very good armor on the turrets. You're able to pretty much penetrate anything that you want to, and you're able to go through anything, aiming for ammunition or aiming for crew. The only thing that stops this vehicle is really the player's skill that's actually behind it, and also whatever the armor on the turret ends up with. If this thing is similar to something like a Leopard 2A5, where the turret becomes incredibly good and you bounce a lot of shots off it, then it's going to end up being another vehicle to add to that German lineup, which is going to be very, very strong. And with the German lineup already being very strong, it's very odd seeing this vehicle in this current state. I remember reading with the BR changes that they were making, and when they decided to move the reload of the STRV-122B and also the reload of the Leopard 2A6, that they talked about the idea that they were going to bring in equivalents to these vehicles at some point in the future, and therefore that will balance out the matchmaking. I didn't realize what they were actually doing was bringing in an equivalent to the same damn tech tree. So therefore what's going to happen is more people are going to play it, and therefore we're just going to have more matches of just Germany versus Germany, and everybody else is along for the ride. When you look at nations like the Chinese, who just recently got the ZTZ-99 and also the PTL-02, nations which don't have as many top-tier vehicles as the big three, the Soviets, the Americans and the Germans, it just makes it rather sad that we're now getting another vehicle for one of the top three nations instead of having a little bit of love for the others. When we look at top-tier MBTs, a lot of them feel very nice to play. A lot of them, I would say, are actually pretty balanced right now. You know, apart from certain machines, such as the 2A6, all of the other ones have their quirks, all of the other ones have their interesting factors. And I don't think what is needed is another Leopard 2 at this time. I think what instead would have been needed is something for maybe a different nation, something maybe for China, something maybe for the Japanese, something maybe for even France to go along with their two Leclercs to try and help them out, instead of giving the nation which is playing dominant right now even more dominant machines to play with. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hosest Kishore, Hans, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.